Donald Trump rolled back some initiative that Joe Biden tried to put in as he was leaving the White House. Joe Biden tried to make name, image, and likeness money in college sports applicable to Title IX. And so whatever you spent on men for name, image, and likeness, Joe Biden wanted to establish the precedent that to be in accordance with Title IX, you have to spend the exact same amount on women. This would have caused chaos in college sports, and Donald Trump yesterday rolled that back, eliminated Joe Biden's initiative. People have erupted and are upset, and I got a couple of tweets here. Maybe we got one from Jamel Hill too, but I think this woman's name is Rachel Dorey. Every single person who is about protecting women's sports should be speaking out against this. Otherwise, they're outing themselves as transphobes. Guilty as charged.
What?
I'm a transphobe. There is no other way to read this. You either believe in women's sports or you don't. Either you believe men can be women or you don't. It's not a convenience thing. She didn't say the thing about believing. But anyway, Jamel Hill, the angry feminist, she writes, can't wait to see how many of those protect women's sports folks speak up about this. Or did they use all their energy up demonizing trans athletes? So this is about trans athletes, according to these Jamel Hill types, and there's some sort of hypocrisy among those of us that are like, hey, we don't want little boys or little men participating in women's sports. We want to protect that lane for women. Now, if we don't want to spend the exact same amount of money on a volleyball player who generates no money for the university, as opposed to the star quarterback who helps generate millions of dollars for the university, we're somehow out of line, out of step. We're transphobic. We're some of the worst people in the world. I don't buy any of it. I'm not a big believer in Title IX. We're forcing this whole deal of women into sports. They just don't have the same amount of interest that men do. Period. End of story. You ask a little boy, little girl at 5, 6, 7 years old, their interest in sports, there's a huge disparity. We've spent the last 50, 60 years trying to close that gap and trying to make little girls have the same interest in sports and that sort of competition as men. It's not going to happen. It never will. This entire Title IX movement and this entire thing, people being upset about this, they're upset that, hey, we've created a system of installing lesbian athletes and angry feminist athletes as cultural icons in sports. That's what we've been financing through Title IX ever since Richard Nixon, I believe, implemented this in 1972, I believe is the year. And how dare they put some stipulations and add any common sense to this and for Donald Trump to say, hey, man, we're not going to play a woman's golfer the same amount of money as we play a football player. No one goes to watch golf. No boosters are sending in money because the golf team is great. I hats off to Donald Trump for doing this. I think it's the right thing. I wish we would move away from Title IX. As much as I love Caitlin Clark, they're few and far between. There won't be another Caitlin Clark probably for 50 years. There'll be better players, but no one will care. Anyway, your thoughts on what Trump has done here and the complaints from the Jamel Hill types. When I get online, I want to know that I'm safe. That's why I love ExpressVPN. They keep my personal information more private and secure. Find out how you can get 4 months free just by clicking the link in the description box below or by going to expressvpn.com/fearless. Protect your online privacy with ExpressVPN.
Once again, Don Quarius, John Tavius Trump. Wow. This presidency can't get any better. I am really not regretting anything that I voted for on November 5th. I'll just say this. Anything that's rescinded from the Biden administration, I will just naturally assume is a good thing for America. Also, anytime the words equity or equitable are attached to it is a bad thing. Okay? And Thomas Sowell talks about this a lot, read a few books last couple of months. Those things are basically designed to create an unlevel playing field in the favor of those who don't deserve it. Now, Jason, let me get the basic principles of what Title IX was intended to do. It was to make sure that female athletes had the same amount of scholarships and resources and money put into their athletics as men, right? That's basically what it is. In my view, football players deserve about 90% of the money. The bottom line is, a lot of these programs, without the football program and then also the basketball at times, there is no athletic program. There are no television contracts. The donations would not be the same. They pay the freight. In my view, them having scholarships is more than a fair deal. But here's the issue when it comes to NIL, and they're conflating the issue. The NIL is about a free market system, about once you have your scholarship, you get to play the games, but are you a popular enough athlete? So I happened to watch this show about the LSU NIL program throughout their athletic department. I think it was on Peacock. Saw about 3 episodes. The reality is this. If you are Livy Dunn, or if you're Jaden Daniels or Angel Reese, the NIL is about free market. It's about capitalism, and you can make as much money as possible, and that is deemed towards your value. To basically enforce companies to say for every dollar you spend on the starting quarterback, you have to spend on the softball player, it makes no sense. And this is a dishonest argument when they are once again putting in trans athletes. And as far as I'm concerned, I know this may be shallow. When people like Jamel Hill disagree with something, I naturally assume it's a great thing for America. That's the point I'm at right now.
I love the fact that you started out talking about equity and equitable and those two words, because this is what the left is so good at. They define the conversation. It's like you'll create something, sports, organized sports, Christians, conservatives did this, and then they'll come in and say, yeah, I know you've created something that's about competition and it's about bringing people together through competition. It's about promoting ideas that support the meritocracy. But we're going to come in and say, hey, equity, that's the real goal. And things need to be equitable. And now everybody's having a conversation about equity instead of about competition and merit and sacrifice and Christian values and just all the things that were at the beginning of the organization of sports in the late 1800s and throughout the 1900s. They've changed it, and now the goal is, hey, are we equitable here?
Well,
and that's not the goal. It's never been the goal, and we sit around and participate in this, and I go back to what I said earlier, because what they've done, it shows up everywhere in terms of setting a standard of, hey, there's a group of people that don't have to get in at the starting line. They get results at the finish line that don't reflect what happened at the starting line. And so what I mean by that is, again, let's go back to 3rd grade. How many boys are interested in playing sports and how many girls are interested in playing sports in 3rd grade? I believe 52% of the American population is women. But I bet in 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, 80% of the people interested in playing sports are boys and 20% are women. So if that's the starting line, how do we get to the finish line and say, hey, this should be 50-50? I've made the same argument as it relates to coaching and black head coaches in the NFL and these other sports. Well, who took the graduate assistant job right out of college? That's the starting line. What are those percentages? Because when we get to the finish line, if 75% of the people at the starting line are white guys, or 90% are white guys and only 10% are black guys, how can I get to the finish line and go, oh, this should be 50-50? If I didn't enter the race, how am I going to get the same results as people that did enter the race at the starting line? The rejection of Title IX and equity, and we have to, these words that they just inject into the conversation, we have to reject them.
Like what you saw? Hit that like button, subscribe, and check out the full episode by clicking the link below.